So I thought I would do this when I'm looking for the car to defrost, because that's fucking freezing this morning. So we have to think about why does fasting burn so much body fat? Why is intermittent fasting such a great tool for burning fat? Well, first of all, you've got to understand the mechanism of what fat burning is, or what fat storage is, and what fat burning is. So we'll talk about how do we store fat. Basically it's excess energy, and it does that via insulin. So whenever you eat a food, specifically a carbohydrate, but some proteins and fats do give a slight insulin response, but carbohydrates specifically give an insulin response. And what does that mean? It means when we eat carbohydrates, we break it down, we start off with chewing it, that's the first part of digestion, and then we digest it in the stomach, and we break it down into the simple molecules of glucose. So all carbohydrates is basically glucose, right? It doesn't matter if it's a simple sugar, it doesn't matter if it's a complex carbohydrate. All the simple sugar and the complex carbohydrate means that the glucose molecule is bound together with something else. For example, like fiber or something like that, or long chain, maltodextrins, or that kind of thing. But ultimately we break it down into glucose. So it doesn't matter if it's a banana, if it's a Mars bar, if it's bread, if it's carbohydrates. It's all broken down into glucose molecule, alright? Again, some of it is broken down quicker or slower than others, depending on what it's bound to. But ultimately all goes down into glucose. Well, we've got glucose and fructose and lactose and dextrose and all that, but it's glucose in the blood, our blood sugars. So the more sugar you eat, then your blood sugar levels elevate. Again, depending on how quick it is digested and absorbed will depend on how high or how quick your blood sugar levels will go. For example, if you drink pure dextrose, which you can get, it's going to go straight into your system and your blood sugars are going to go straight to the roof. If it's something like a bread or a pasta, which is harder to digest, slower to digest, then your blood sugar levels will go quite slow. In fact, very slow, because by the time you've digested some of it, you've used some of it, so you're using it as it goes into the blood, so you're not going to get as high of a spike, but you're still going to get a blood sugar response, right? So whenever the blood sugar levels are elevated, then the pancreas will start to detect this. Well, actually the pancreas is going to detect it actually in the mouth, with the sweet sort of sensors in the tongue, and the brain are going to pick up there's something sweet coming. The pancreas is going to start to stimulate the beta cells, which is going to start to release then insulin to help manage the blood sugars. Because if your blood sugars were too high, this is called hyperglycemia. If you went hyperglycemic, it can basically kill you, too much sugar in the blood. And what happens with diabetics is the sugar remains in the blood, and the sugar can actually fall, because again it's heavy against gravity, and the sugar can sit in the extremities, fingertips, toes, back of the eyes. You can go blind, and some diabetics actually end up getting amputated, because the sugar, the blood sugar, the glucose in the blood lies here because of gravity pulling it down, and it actually rots. The sugar just rots inside your body, and it can cause then poisonous and stuff like that, the amputation. Anyway, so insulin comes and it shuttles, it basically tells the cell, open up and let this energy in. Now, if the cells are already saturated or full, or if there's more energy than the cells can cope with, the excess energy then, insulin will then, it'll say to the muscles, can you stick this into the cells for me, right? And then into the muscle cells predominantly, or every cell in the body. If those cells are full, and those cells will be saturated very quickly. Like I'm 14.5 stone. I'm actually quite lean at the minute, so that's 14.5 stone with a lot of muscle. If I did a total body circuit training, I mean total body, I mean I depleted all my muscle cells of energy to the point where I went, where athletes would call, say, hit the wall, I went hypoglycemic. Hypo means blood sugar levels were too low, and I wanted to totally resaturate all my muscles. You're talking about 60 to 80 grams of carbohydrates, and I'm full. All the muscle cells are now completely full up, ready to rock and roll again. Anything above that is surplus energy, then that has to go somewhere. And we talked about this, that surplus energy, basically then insulin will come and store that as fat. Now that's called lipolysis, where we turn energy into fat. Lipolysis, alright, because basically lipos is fat, alright. And the way it stores it stores it with a thing called glycerol. And it stores it in three molecules, fatty molecules together, and their glycerol molecule, three of them, is called a triglyceride. So three fatty molecules bound together with glycerol is a triglyceride, and that's basically how your fat is stored. So that's fat storage, lipolysis. Alright, so now what we're going to do is, how do we mobilize that fat to use as energy? because that's what we want to do when we burn fat or we lose weight. Because when we lose weight, and this is the term that really fries my head, guys, you should never actually be trying to lose weight, you should be trying to lose fat. There is a massive difference, and we'll talk about that tomorrow probably, because there's a huge difference between fat loss and weight loss. Right? You've got to understand the difference between the two. Alright? So we're back in the room. So yes, so the body stores fat as triglycerides. So what we have to do then is we have to mobilize that fat if we want to burn it. So this is the bit that we've got to understand here. The opposite hormone of insulin is called glucagon. So the alpha cells of the pancreas then will release glucagon. And the reason why it releases glucagon is because blood sugar levels now start to go down. Remember, when blood sugar levels go up, body releases insulin. The body's job is to keep blood sugar levels at a baseline, at a nice average, just floating along nice, so your energy levels are nice and sustainable. When we eat food, we've got to store that energy. Insulin comes up, we store it so that the blood sugar can come back down. So basically, insulin is trying to bring your blood sugar levels back down to normal. That's why it's elevated. That's why insulin is released. To store the energy to bring your blood sugar levels back down to normal. Now, if you're eating multiple times a day, you're getting blood sugar levels elevated multiple times a day, you're getting insulin released multiple times a day. You got to understand, the job of insulin is to store energy to bring blood sugar levels back down to normal. Alright? Now, if blood sugar levels drop down low, the body has to mobilize energy to bring blood sugar levels back up to normal. So the pancreas' job is to regulate your blood sugar. If it goes too high, your beta cells of the pancreas will release insulin to bring blood sugar levels down. If your blood sugar levels, energy levels go too low, the alpha cells will release glucagon to bring blood sugar levels back up to normal by releasing stored energy. Insulin stores energy, glucagon releases energy. Both jobs are designed to keep your blood sugar levels at a normal baseline. Does that understand? But you can only have one hormone or the other. It's either insulin storing, glucagon releasing. So you can see what's happening here. If we have insulin all day, every day, we're always storing energy, we're not mobilizing energy. We can't release fat for energy if there's insulin present. What's one of the big massive benefits of fasting? We're not eating food. Remember, it's not just carbohydrates that release insulin, protein will as well too. In fact, whey protein spikes it quite high, but we need to, because we want to be able to store the nutrients and amino acids into the cell, so we need insulin to do that, right? Fats will also give it a slight insulin spike, because again, fat is energy and it needs to be stored, it needs to be mobilized, and the storage energy, all right, store the nutrients, so we need insulin to do that. But if we want to burn fat, we need glucagon, right? So when we're fasting, there's no food coming in at all, there's no spikes in energy, there's no insulin being released. In fact, we're actually using up a lot of stored energy, which is why we get a wee bit dehydrated sometimes, because we've depleted the muscle energy, because that glucose, when it's stored, when insulin comes to store the glucose in the muscles, it stores it as glycogen, right? It doesn't really matter what the names are, but the energy stored as glycogen. The glycogen retains fluid. If the glycogen is being used up, just be moving in every day, walking, talking, eating, sleeping, moving, pooping, doing all that exercise, we deplete the energy, then we also release the fluid that's stored inside, hence therefore we become dehydrated. Dehydration isn't lack of fluid, it's not lack of water, it's lack of ability to retain the water, and we need minerals to do that. For example, sodium, potassium, magnesium. We need all those things to store muscle and keep the body hydrated. Again, I'm digressing here a wee bit, but anyway, so we want to release that fat. Now remember, the fat is stored as a triglyceride. Now to release the triglyceride and to break the bond, to break the glycerol bond and release those three fatty molecules into the system to use as energy, we need a thing called epinephrine. Epinephrine and norepinephrine are your fight or flight hormones, as well as cortisol. So whenever we stress the body, deliberate, purposefully good stress, for example, exercise, fasting, because fasting is, for all intensive purposes, stressful in the body, but this stress is what we call adaptogens. Adaptogens, which means like an acute stress response where the body can adapt it to become fitter, better, stronger. Remember, getting stronger is adaptation to stress put in the muscle by exercise. Getting fitter is adaptation to stress put on the heart due to exercise. So stress is actually good. It makes you stronger, it makes you more resilient, it makes you be able to do things. But there's a difference between an acute stress and a chronic stress, all right? So we'll talk about that later as well too. So an acute stress response. So the body's under P, there's no energy here. Oh shit, what's going on? The body releases cortisol, it releases epinephrine. Epinephrine goes to the fat, the glycerol molecules, breaks the bond and releases that fat into the system, right? But when the fat's released into the system, we got to do something with it. How do we then burn it? And that's the next question. So fasting is really good for mobilizing stored energy into this bloodstream, so we can now use that and burn the fat that we have stored in the tank. So it's not just about we're towing this tank full of energy. How now is fasting really good at actually getting that energy released back into the system.